Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 33, featuring the top 5 Kira Nerys episodes. Peldar joy, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And this week, we're about to have one of our very own orb experiences. We're looking into the orb of contemplation, and we're coming up with our top 5 Kira Nerys episodes. Kira is definitely one of my all-time favorite characters in Star Trek history, and in fact, you can find her ranked in the top 5 on my character ranks at TrekRanks.com. And since this is the 25th anniversary of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, we thought we'd do a Kira Nerys episode. Earlier in the year, we did our top 5 Ben Sisko episodes, and that was an awesome episode. And on that episode with us is one of our favorite Trekkies. He's here in the room with us, the Miranda class himself, Mr. Carlos Miranda. He's usually in the London sector, but he's in the Los Angeles quadrant today. Carlos, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here, and it's kind of surreal to be here, like in your house, like looking at you as we do this,
and playing with all my Star Trek stuff.
I am, and yeah, like I told, putting everything in the wrong place.
I don't like that.
Exactly, I'm doing it on purpose.
Also with us, another TrekRanks veteran. She was with us recently for our top 5 high concept Enterprise episodes. She is Jenn Tifft, and we're fired up to have her back as well. Another great Trekkie. Jenn, are you there?
Hi. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back. This show is going to be fantastic. We love Kira Nerys, and we love Deep Space Nine.
We do indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, no question. All right, Carlos, Jenn, let's do a quick general order number 1 reset here at TrekRanks. And that starts with the fact that we love Trek. And the TrekRanks podcast is all about all the reasons that we love Star Trek. And we like to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to help get the conversation started, because quite literally, my favorite thing to do is to talk about Star Trek. And as the Vulcan Master likes to remind us each week, the main driver for all of our discussion here at the TrekRanks podcast is
infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
Our mantra here is no wrong answers. We're not here to nitpick or to argue, but just to celebrate the greatness of Trek. We love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast. And I think most of you have probably heard all that before, but we like to reset every week with some of our, if there's any newcomers jumping into TrekRanks for the first time. And on that note, just a reminder that our entire back catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and at the TricorderTransmissions.com, because one of the beauties of our show is that each episode is pretty timeless. You can listen in any order, and if you're familiar with Star Trek, we think you'll find each of our topics here fun and familiar. So if you haven't gone back to listen to any old episodes, we highly encourage you to do that.
Hailing frequencies are open.
If you would like to contact TrekRanks directly, the best way to do that is find us on Twitter at TrekRanks and at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. And please consider any voicemail message you leave an audition to be on the show, because we want to hear from you. Our show is definitely better when we hear from you. You can also find us on Facebook at the Tricorder Transmissions. And for those of you enjoying all of our shows here at the network, you can support us at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. All right, to wrap all that up, Carlos and Jenn, we'd like to tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. Jenn.
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is also on Twitter. I'm at EatAtQuarks, and please feel free to message me and we'll talk some Trek.
I forgot to put that in my notes. One of my all-time favorite Twitter handles.
It's a great Twitter handle.
Carlos,
Thank
how about you?
I'm also on Twitter regularly. 90% of my tweets are about Star Trek. And it's my Twitter handle is at Double Mac because when I'm not tweeting about Star Trek, I'm tweeting about coffee, and double macchiatos are my jam. So if I was at Quarks, that's what I would order. Forget Arachnogino.
I'm sure it's on the menu.
2 great Twitter follows. I highly recommend you follow Carlos and Jenn. All right, I think we're ready to activate our level 1 diagnostic.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
So for our character topics like this one, we like to get the conversation started with a real simple question. And that is, what is the one word that you would use to describe Kira Nerys? So Jenn, let's start with you.
If I had to pick one, it's fierce.
Oh,
She is fierce. She's fierce in her body. She's fierce in her mind. She's fierce in her spirit. Everything about her, everything she does. She's obviously strong, great fighter, but she's also, she's a strategic genius. She solves mysteries. She's insightful, and she's a survivor. She's fierce.
I love that. I think that's going to go well with mine as well. So, Carlos, how about you? What's your one word to describe Kira?
Just to kind of build on what Jenn said, I'd say passionate. I think that Kira is a very, whatever it is, she's like all in. She's very passionate. I feel like we'll talk about this in greater detail, but for the most part, I think for most of her tenure on DS9, she's acts first, thinks later. She's very emotional, very, very passionate about everything that she does, whether it's her religion, her devotion to, friends, to Odo, whatever it is. It is this, she's just a passionate person. And she's my all-time favorite character in Trek.
Oh, wow.
I love that. I just like having Carlos in the room with us here. It's amazing.
Keep staring into my eyes. I'm feeling very uncomfortable.
Stop that. All right. So for me, I think Kira, everyone knows, is a lot of things. Major, colonel, freedom fighter, terrorist, whatever you want to label her. And the one word that I think jumps out to me that I always think of when I think of her is determined. And that goes along with fierce pretty well, I think. She's the single most determined character I think we've ever seen in Trek, whether it's driving the Cardassians off of her homeworld during the occupation, or serving her faith in the prophets, or fighting the Dominion. She's always got this never say die attitude, and it's at the core of everything she does. So I don't think you can put any obstacles in front of her where she's ever going to quit or not just see something through to the end time and time again. I mean, she helps Cardassia in their liberation at one point. Yep. And she's opposed. I wasn't even thinking, she opposed Sisko and Cassidy's wedding because the prophets said that's bad news. And she just is always determined in her beliefs and the things that she does. So
rightly or wrongly, which is like
she chased her Dejara because some nut job.
I know. Said, she's like, I have to be an artist, and she's like, okay,
all right, I'm determined to be an artist.
Yeah,
so, I love her.
She worked hard on that bird.
She did.
She really did. She really did. It wasn't that bad, Kira.
It was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. All right. With all that in mind, let's get into our Prime Directives.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
So, Jenn, how did you narrow down your list and make your picks? So what's your Prime Directive, basically, for this? The key factors for picking your Kira episodes.
This is really tough. I had two that I knew right away are just my favorite Kira, personal favorite Kira moments. But then, I kept writing down all these wonderful, badass Kira moments. And I try to think, okay, well, what's going to put one of these above the others in the top 5? And I couldn't come up with some, one central theme. There's so many different aspects to her fierceness. So I just stuck with fierce as my theme and showed different ways that she has shown us how absolutely fierce she is. So that was my thinking.
So it plays with your word as well.
Yeah.
All right, Carlos, how about you?
Mine was actually the complete opposite to Jenn. I immediately knew that there was one I had to pick because actually, we'll talk about this later. It's probably one of the most kind of personal episodes of Star Trek for me ever. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So immediately I knew that there was one episode, but I've watched every episode of Deep Space Nine, I don't know, countless times. And I actually immediately knew what the best Kira moments or Kira episodes were. And, you can think, we all know what they are in many respects, what the top episodes are. So I really kind of tasked myself with thinking about particular moments or episodes that are a little bit off the beaten path. Not totally, not all of them are going to be surprising or anything, but I tried to make myself think a little bit outside of the box. And rather than kind of commit to one aspect of Kira in preparation for this, as I was Ubering over here and preparing for this, I took it very seriously, Jim. I read a quote from Nana Visitor where she says that she basically says Kira has come full circle. She was being interviewed after the finale aired, and she goes that Kira has come full circle. She's in the exact same place, but is not the same person, right? Which
Absolutely.
I thought was really excellent, right, in many respects. So I started thinking about, and this is the way I tackled the Cisco episode, so thinking about different aspects. So I picked 5 very different episodes, all of which, rather than relating to one particular theme about her character, like you're doing, Jenn, thinking about very different aspects of Kira's character. So I looked at it as 5 different, approaching it from 5 different kind of, I think, core components of the character.
I love that. That's actually, I'm a little bit, I think, in the middle. I'm similar to Carlos I do have a theme with my 5, but it also ties into my word of determined as well. So my picks were really driven by what we learned about Kira in the episodes that I picked and how we saw her defining herself. And I chose 5 episodes that were very distinct in showcasing her talents and skills and motivations. And each of my hashtags will highlight exactly the skill set in the episode that led me to pick it. So I love my list. I could watch these 5 episodes over and over again. I feel like they're key episodes in highlighting her. And then I've got a bunch of secondary systems too, because there's so many great ones. And I will say my number 1 episode totally surprised me. When I started doing my list, and it just ended up at number 1, and I was surprised because it's not one that I would have thought of immediately. Okay, definitely very excited about this conversation and the deep dive that we're going to have on such a great character. Third Emoticon, it's time for you to update us on the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
All right, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag for our top Kira Nerys episodes. Then we'll reveal the episode, and then at the end we'll ask for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And if we end up having any duplicates, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Jenn, let's start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your list of top 5 Kira Nerys episodes?
I have moments within episodes too.
Oh, that's perfect.
So,
that's great.
Yeah. So some of these
I
aren't.
always go back and forth between calling it moments or episodes, and so I get stuck on episodes.
Yeah.
We flip-flop.
For a character show, I like the moments because a lot of these you wouldn't really think of as Kara episodes. A lot of my choices.
Yeah.
Okay, love it.
Even the first one here. So stay with me. Okay. 5 words and a hashtag. Thinking outside the Denorius belt. Hashtag, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Season 1, episode 1, Emissary.
Uh-huh.
The reason there's a lot of great Kara moments in the premiere, but the one that I wanted to highlight was Kara makes a decision that kind of defines the entire series. Kira's the one who has the idea to move the station from Bajor to the mouth of the wormhole. And that is just so incredibly huge. and it's such an incredibly long-term way of thinking about something. You know, she doesn't care that it's pretty much impossible. You know what I mean? But she says, this is going to be strategically important, you know, to the Alpha Quadrant. We need to Bajor needs to stake its claim, and we got to do it now. She asked Chief O'Brien, is this possible? And he's like, well, you know, it would maybe take like 2 months on the thrusters we have. You know, it's not a starship. And she says, yeah, it has to be there tomorrow. make it happen.
The Cardassians are leaving their position on a course toward the Denorius belt.
Mr. O'Brien, what would it take to move this station to the mouth of the wormhole?
This isn't a starship, Major. We've got 6 working thrusters to power us, and that's it. A 160 million kilometer trip would take 2 months.
It has to be there tomorrow.
That's not possible, sir.
That wormhole might just reshape the future of this entire quadrant. The Bajorans have to stake a claim to it.
And that decision is just so huge for the series that it's an amazing first impression of this character.
No, it's a fantastic pick. I was showing Carlos, I had goosebumps.
I think we can go home now.
It's
like this. Jen just dropped the mic, and we're like, okay.
So good. Carlos, what's your quick take?
Amazing. I mean, I did think about Emissary, but not like that. I thought about Emissary just because I think that first the meeting of Kira and Cisco.
So I guess you want the office.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes.
And it's funny. I will argue later that I don't think that Kira becomes particularly a strategic thinker until much later. I think she's a very tactical thinker and not a strategic thinker. But I think that maybe you just blew my argument out of the water right there. That's like first episode. Boom. No, I think that's an amazing pick, Jen. I mean, hats off.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Jen's next pick's going to be Move Along Home. He says, I'm a administrator.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's awesome. Awesome, Jen. All right, Carlos, what's your number 5 pick?
My number 5 pick is this kind of relates to Kira as the lover and the friend. I think that, again, obviously I would argue that her biggest characteristic is that kind of that Kira as the rebel, but really I think that when you think about her and how she grows over the series, so I want to start off with Kira as the lover and the friend. My 5 words are the most personal of episodes, so that I'll talk about those in a second, and my hashtag is never know how much I love you. Talking about season 6 episode 20, His Way.
Oh, great.
And so the reason for the 5 words, the most personal episodes, is that this is so. I was just telling Jen and Jim here before I started that my wife is not a Trekkie at all. Like, not even. She knows more than the average bear just because we've been together for almost 15 years. So through by osmosis, she knows a lot. But she's not
whether
a Star Trek.
Whether she wants to or not.
Yeah, whether she wants to or not, she knows the difference between Klingons, Romulans, and Vulcans. But she, when we started dating, like really early on, she said, I get that you love the Star Trek thing. Show me one episode that you think I'm going to love. Now, my wife loves musicals like more than anything, right? And she likes old standards and things like that. And so I thought, I have an episode that I'm going to show her. And so the first episode I ever watched with my wife was His Way. And so it is, so she knows the episode. She's seen it 2 or 3 times over the years. So it's just an episode that, one, kind of relates, it strikes a particular chord with me, no pun intended. But 2, I also think that it's a really, really obviously important moment and an important episode. It's really an Odo episode. Lots of things happen in that episode. Obviously, it's the first appearance of Vic. It's when they first kiss. So there's a lot of firsts that happen to that episode. But I just think that you kind of get a very happy Kira at the end of this episode, and you don't think of necessarily Kira. It's not the first thing that you think about. She's not the happiest of characters. There's all these scenes when Dax and I've always loved the dynamic between Dax and Kira, where Dax is trying to get her to have fun and she can't relax in holosuites and things like that. But this is a very kind of happy Kira, and she's out of her kind of rebellious mode, and I love that I love that Kira. So because of that, because of the personal connection, and because I think it's a particular moment, which, by the way, both Renee and Nanat didn't want them to get together, right? So very famously, like, they thought that it was a really bad idea for the 2 characters to get together. So despite that, I think that this episode is such a defining moment for the character, but it goes to kind of change her. Like, you could argue that there is Kira pre-Odo and then Kira post-Odo, and there's a certain element and kind of lightness to the character that comes after her relationship, after she begins, dating Odo. So
yeah, well, that was going to be my comment. It's a great Kira episode, but it's the defining Kira episode because that's where she ends the series. And I recently just finished my DS9 rewatch, and I forgot. For me, the biggest emotional, and maybe this might come up later, but in what we leave behind, it's that moment when Odo tells her he's going back. It's not when he goes back. It's that moment when she realizes, oh, he's leaving, and you can see it, and it's so hard, and it all starts.
It all starts
his
there.
way, and I love his way. This one of those episodes that I've said this before. Actually, I said it I think on the holodeck episode we just did that. The Vic Fontaine stuff shouldn't work.
Oh,
it totally works.
Oh my God,
it's amazing.
Can you imagine that pitch? Like, let's get a Vegas loud. Like, what?
I know. Well, the pitch was by the showrunner, so it was okay. Jen, how about you? What's your quick take on his way?
Well, there's just really quick. I love Vic Fontaine too. I'm a big fan, and it's just so funny because a 1960s, Vegas lounge singer is probably the most 90s thing about Deep Space Nine. That's what dates most for me. But but I love his way. I agree with what you say. It's just nice to let Kara have a moment. Like that. You brought up Dax and Kira, which I adore their friendship. And I love in his way when that they had that moment, Kara says something like, have you ever had a moment of perfect clarity? And Dax gets this grin on her face because she knows what Kara's talking about. And even if she's not saying, she's in love with Odo. And I love that, they get that moment, like, because like you said, Dax is always the one trying to, get her to have fun and pull her out of the shell. And, and that's just it's a lovely pick. And I love that you have a personal relationship with it with your wife too. That's so nice.
And it is just, Jen, I mean, it's something that when we talk about the great Star Trek friendships, you talk about Kirk and Spock, you talk about Bashir and Miles, Cisco and Dax and things like that. But actually the Dax-Kira relationship is so natural. And it's so and you can tell that the actors, one, just really liked each other, right? And really cared for each other. And they were friends off screen. But their chemistry, and there's so many episodes where it's just like tiny little sequences where Dax is trying to get her to give her some gossip or whatever. And it's so it's just so nice and effortless. And I love that you bring that up because I think that it's one of those friendships that never makes anybody's top 5 or top 10 list necessarily, but it's wonderful.
But it's so wonderful. Yeah. And I love how she knows exactly how to troll Kara too.
Yeah, totally.
I can't remember what episode it is, but she talks about how Morn is kind of cute. The 3 little hairs that come out of his forehead are adorable.
Captain Bouquet.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
Just to get the rise out of Kara, she knows exactly how to get her. It's just such a fun friendship. And you're right, so natural. And I love their friendship.
Yeah,
classic. All right, so my number 5 pick. I'll start by 5 words and a hashtag, and then my hashtags are going to be how I see Kira. 5 words: Kira, Dukat, and Dumar fight Klingons. Hashtag Resistance Fighter. And it is Return to Grace from Deep Space Nine, Season 4. I love this episode. I have it ranked pretty high on TrekRanks, number 39. I see it as the Kira Dukat road trip episodes of Season 4 because Insurrection and not Insurrection, Indiscretion and Return to Grace kind of are 2 fun episodes that I love. And so this is Kira as the Resistance Fighter, and I love that this time, I like the way the Deep Space Nine writers are toying around with softening Gul Dukat a little bit in this episode, and I think they were trying to maybe play with a little bit of redemption for him. But every scene in which he's trying to get comfy with Kira, she is not having it. She's so great. She's so consistent on that. She's all business. And I think you just see everything here. Her smarts in this, helping to redesign a Klingon freighter to fire these upgraded weapons. She's helping Torres Ziyal learn how to fight and defend herself. She's teaching Dukat some of these early strategies of how he needs to be if he's going to be undertaking this kind of fight with his solo warbird out there or a bird of prey. And she's educating Zial too on the fact that her father in his past is not something that she's ever going to be okay with. So she's the best. And side note on this episode, I always am amazed that you've got the introduction of Damar in this episode. And he's just a background character, trying to figure stuff out and taking commands. Yeah, he ends up leading the Cardassian rebellion against the Dominion. He kills Zial, who's in this episode. It's like, so many emotions. Yeah. So I just like the layers of this episode, and I like it's a really good microcosm of Kira as a resistance fighter, showcasing her skill sets. Jen, what's your quick take on that?
Yeah, I agree. I love this episode. Like you said, Kira having to put up with Dukat in these situations. I don't know how she has the grace herself, return to grace, but she has the grace she deals with it with such grace, just even having to be in the same room with this guy. But what I like about this episode, what sticks out to me is that this is kind of the start of Kira and Dukat kind of like having to be like co-parents together for Zial, which is such an interesting dynamic to me. I just love Zial and her relationship with Kira, and it's a great pick.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I love Zial too, but it's funny, like the actress who played Zial in this episode doesn't quite. Obviously, this is still a very young kind of Zial. She's just been rescued. So, but I love Zial, but I love Zial in the later incarnation of Zial. I feel like
me too.
I think this character, this particular actress, the way she was portrayed was very stoic, and I feel like Zial, to me, I don't think about her like that way. I think about her like much later, like in the occupation of the station, Zial, where she's she's warm and loving, and the weird co-parenting, I've never heard it described that way, Jen, is dead on, and but it's I think it's a fantastic episode. I love the scene between Zial and Kira where she's teaching, where they're talking about Starfleet phasers versus Cardassian phasers, and why you would choose Cardassian phasers because they're not as complicated and over engineered, so they're not going to break down as easily. Like there are these moments of your to your point about being a microcosm of Kira as a character. I think that episode is an amazing example of that. And Damar, the introduction to Damar, that's why Deep Space Nine, I think, will always be the best Trek, because they do these things that just pay off. They reward the viewer, and Damar is probably one of the top examples of that. He was just the conman, literally the tactical officer in the background.
It's amazing how that played out.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember which actress. Because this wasn't Sia Baton, right? It wasn't the same actress that played her in the first.
I'm pretty sure it was Sia Baton.
So she was in the first two. Yeah, she's my favorite female. I was thinking.
Really?
Oh, is she really?
Yeah, although there was one in the middle that...
Didn't she come back later as one of the Orion slave girls in that episode of Enterprise?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she randomly is Zial is the one of the slave girls in 10 years later in an episode of Enterprise.
Yeah, she's in Bound.
Yeah, exactly. Bound.
Well, I know what I'm watching after I get off the phone with you guys.
That's your favorite Zial?
Confirmed. Sia Baton is my favorite Zial, so that's okay.
I guess there's no wrong answer. No wrong answer. No wrong answer.
Zial. R.I.P. Okay, let's go on to round 4. Jen, what is your number 4 pick for Kira episodes?
Okay, number 4 pick. Never tell her the odds. # remind me never to play poker with you. Season 7, episode 2, Shadows and Symbols. So this is the one where the Romulan Empire pretends to build a hospital on one of the Bajoran moons, but it really builds a military installation there. And the Federation is doesn't want to offend the Romulans because they have this, tenuous alliance. Thank you. Alliance with them. And so Kara's like, okay, well, it's up to me to defend Bajor again. So she basically plays a game of chicken with Senator Kretak and 14 Romulan warbirds. And she builds a blockade and basically just says, you know what, if you want to build these weapons on a Bajoran moon, you're going to have to go through me, Yeah. And I just love it because she's completely outgunned, still has that confidence, that Kira tenacity that she wins. She's
fierce and determined.
She's fierce and determined and passionate. But the scene I really love is she's in her crummy little impulse ship, with this little sad little blockade on the comm with Senator Kretek and Admiral Ross, saying, I'm going to fire on any ship that tries to cross this blockade. Even though like 14 warbirds are on their way, and she's so confident. She says, end transmission. And then to Odo, she's like, how'd I do? You know what I mean? So she gets the Romulans, but she also gets Admiral Ross too, which I love. You could see, because at the end, it's him giving in to her demands that force them to pull back. And I just think it's just such a wonderful, this is our first time that Colonel Kira kind of asserts herself, and it's just in such an amazingly Kira way.
But we only have a few hours to reach some sort of compromise. After that, people are going to start dying.
Now, you can talk about compromise all you want. Any ship attempting to break through that blockade will be fired upon.
Colonel, do you seriously believe that your antiquated collection of impulse ships stands a chance against our warbirds?
We'll find out soon enough, won't we? End transmission. How'd I do?
Mike Hammer would have been proud.
I love that episode.
I'll say this was on my secondary systems, and I wrote my note, which was because I love this episode. I was really close to picking it, which is just in case you forgot what a badass Kira is. Because in this episode, she is such a badass. Carlos, what's your take?
One of my favorite things about that episode is kind of the love that Odo has for Kira, and how he's in awe of her at all times, and always has been. But I think this is one of the only times where Odo really, in public, lays down his guard and is just like, all right, I guess I'm dying with you here, Yeah. Like, it's just such a wonderful little, like, character moment about his love and how, like, she's made this decision. She's in charge. There is no doubt that she is going to do this no matter what. And I just love the fact that Odo is just sitting there and be like, yep, if this is how we're going to die, I'm so glad to be here with you. Yeah. It's just amazing.
I wouldn't want it any other way.
I figured it'd be an outlier episode. I'm fired up that somebody picked it. It's great. All right, Carlos, how about you? What's your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick is a little bit more of a moment rather than an episode. Yep. And it kind of relates to Kira the Rebel. My 5 words are, don't effing touch me, fool. And the hashtag is, 'cause I depend on me. This is season 6, episode 5, Favor the Bold. Mm-hmm. And so obviously, like the 6 episode arc to retake the station that opens up season 6, I think are probably my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine, especially if you go back to Call to Arms, which I think is probably arguably the best Star Trek cliffhanger.
And in the cards.
Yeah, and you know what I'm talking about. But so I love, maybe not cliffhanger, but I think it's my favorite season finale. And I love these first 6 episodes of season 6. I think we all do. But I think this in particular, I feel like she feels frustrated that she can't really go against her government and try to openly fight the Dominion and the Cardassians. So she goes back to kind of being that terrorist/rebel underground and doing whatever she can to kind of grow distrust among the ranks and just be a saboteur. But what I love about this episode is that this is talking about Damar and Ziyal. That scene where Kira and Ziyal are speaking in the cargo bay, and then Damar comes up and it goes like talking to Ziyal and touches Kira, and just basically Kira just beats the living hell out of him. and obviously the wonderful scene afterwards where he like has to show up to the Cottonway unit and he feels like he's all beat up. But that particular moment to me, she's strong enough and she can handle Damar and all of them. She could stand up to the entire Cardassian army and she can be cool under pressure when she needs to be. But kind of that protector, that mother bear, all of a sudden character and characteristic of her, of Ziyal potentially being in danger of doing something she doesn't want to do, and then she just beats the hell out of Damar, is fantastic. And it really it shows the crescendo that she's been building up over all those episodes. She can't just take it anymore, and she has to be a rebel. She has to kind of go back to what she knows best. And so I love that episode. I love that arc. But that particular moment to me is one of these defining, this is Rebel Kira at her best.
I was going to say, and that actually, it's a great Kira episode because it's the buildup of all the plans and everything that they're putting into it. So that's a great, unbelievable moment. Jen, how about you on Favorable?
Yeah, it's a very satisfying moment, isn't it? Especially knowing what happens in the next episode.
Yeah.
With Damar and Zial. So it's a great pick. I also enjoy. I know.
but it wasn't your favorite Zial, so it's okay.
It's my favorite Zial, though.
Exactly, my favorite too, Jen. We're correct. Don't worry.
The correct one, no. No wrong answers. Yeah. But yeah, I adore that arc too, and we're actually going to be visiting it that a different episode, but the same arc a little bit later. So I'll save my comments for later.
All right, then let's close out round 4 with my pick and my 5 words in a hashtag. Kira defends Bajor against Bajorans. Hashtag freedom fighter. And the episode is Shakaar from Deep Space Nine Season 3. It's another one of my favorite underrated episodes of TrekRanks, number 53. I love this episode. And side note, my good friends over at the Trek Geeks just recently did their See It or Skip It on Deep Space Nine Season 3. And they skipped this episode, and I nearly drove off the road. It was so frustrating. Paul Wraith was released from the fire caves. I was just so upset.
He's being very animated.
Anyway,
right
I am. That is true.
I don't even want to look at him.
So I love the location shoot on this episode. I love the political intrigue and all the machinations going on between Kira and Kai and Shakaar and these soil reclamators. And Shakaar, by the way, was my number 1 hottest character. Just so we're clear. Love that guy. But I think
no wrong answers.
Yeah.
So, but
I don't like Shakaar that way either. But I don't, but
strong silent time. All right, that's a different episode. But what I love here about Kira is the way she is such a good friend to Shakaar, and I love Pharrell and Lupiza and their whole Shakaar resistance cell. Yeah. And the fact that as soon as she realizes what's going on with the Kai and these reclamators, she's in the fight with them. And they are back to their old ways, and she's leading them and trying to figure out the best strategy. And I love this scene at the end where the other Bajoran leader, that somebody they respect from the fight, the occupation, is they've got him in a trap, and they're about to take him out. And they're like, what are we doing? Let's go down there and talk to him, come up with another angle. Really good political intrigue and tricks, and at the end when they walk in and basically Shakaar is going to become the first minister. I love this episode. For me, it's a big stepping stone for Deep Space Nine's overall arc. I love that. So, and I love that just everything you see in Kira and how she's a freedom fighter in this episode. So, Jen, what's your take on Shakaar?
Yeah, I mean, she's back with her family.
Right.
Doing what they do best. I love this episode. I can't imagine skipping it on a rewatch either. But I just love how much she gets Wynn good in this episode.
Oh,
because Wynn is so sure that she's going to be the first minister.
Right.
And the smile on Kira's face when they walk in, you're like, hey, guess who's going to run for first minister?
So satisfying.
You're done.
I mean, if we talk about the gratifying beating, how gratifying it was to beat up Damar when they get anything over Wynn. I go down. Wynn is top 3 best Star Trek villains.
Oh, yes.
Definitely, yeah.
Obviously, right? She's amazing, and any small victory like that is just unbelievably gratifying. And so I like this episode a lot, and I think Shakaar is really interesting because if you look at her 3 main relationships, obviously Bareil, Shakaar, and Odo, that they're very different. Every single one of them is complete. She doesn't have a type, right? These very different. And I like Shakaar. And Jen, this idea of going back to her family, that's how she grew up. That's fundamentally Kira.
It killed me when they killed off Pharrell and Lupiza.
Oh yes.
In Wrong is Darker Than Death.
Yeah.
I just was I couldn't believe they did that. Yeah. Just off screen, Pharrell and Lupiza are dead.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, it's brutal. All right, let's move to the soup round, Jen. What's your number 3 pick?
Oh, the soup round. Awesome. My 5 words in a hashtag. Okay. The Alpha Quadrant's best hope. Hashtag, you can take the woman out of the Bajoran uniform, but you can't take Bajor out of the woman. Season 7, episode 21, When It Rains.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I knew I had to have Commander Kira in here somewhere because she's arguably, one of the most important figures in winning the Dominion War. If you think about the final battle with the Dominion, they don't win that battle without the Cardassian resistance. And there's no Cardassian resistance without Kira.
Yep.
So, it's amazing. What I want to highlight here is just a little throwaway line, just a little throwaway scene. This is the beginning. And When It Rains is when Sisko says, "We need you to go teach them how to be resistance fighters." And think about what he's asking her to do. Not only does she have to teach her former oppressors the tactics she used to defeat them, which is horrible enough, but then personally, she has to work with the man who murdered Zial, someone who she thinks of as like a daughter. And this is hard, this is like horrible, asking her to go way above and beyond to begin with. But of course, she does it because she's caring, she gets done, But beyond that, then there's even the indignity of, guess what? They're not going to want to listen to you because you're Bajoran.
Yeah, right.
So we'll put you in a Starfleet uniform. She looks amazing in the Starfleet uniform. Yeah. I love that. But for her character, that's, they're kind of like ripping away her identity just so they don't offend the sensibilities of the butthurt Cardassians who don't want to take orders from a member of the Bajoran militia, So the part I want to highlight is, she puts on the uniform and Garak just makes a throwaway joke about how, maybe we could have Dr. Bashir, do something about your nose. And she says, I'm only willing to go so far.
This is how I appeared when I worked for the Cardassians.
Ah, well, it should put them at ease anyway. I wonder if Dr. Bashir could help us with that nose of yours.
I'm only willing to go so far. Damar's men are just going to have to get used to the idea of having me around.
Oh, they'll tolerate you to a point. If I were you, I'd watch my back.
And I love that they threw that in there because it's kind of like an acknowledgement of how much this really sucks for Kira. Yeah. How much she's really giving away to do this for the good of the Alpha Quadrant. But it's not going to change who she is. And that little throwaway line, it just always sticks out to me. And I love that moment.
Yeah. I also think on that moment, it's like, you're going to be in a Starfleet uniform. You got to go help Damar. And you're going to go with Garak. That's like that.
Right. He's piling on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That whole arc is amazing.
Yeah.
And, so good.
I think that's also one of those times when Kira can put, and this is not the Kira. I'd argue that this is not the Kira from the beginning of the series. The Kira from the beginning of the series would have had a harder time putting away her feelings and her convictions for the bigger picture, right? I think the Kira here, and this is what I think that her character evolves from being very tactical to being very strategic. I think the character at the very end, in this particular episode, she's thinking about the strategy. Why does she do this? Because there's a bigger fight here. There's a bigger game, and she can put her feelings aside. And she's got to help her, the people that basically, that ravished her world, that defined her as a person, that killed her parents, that killed her friends, in order to kind of avoid a larger, to defeat a larger evil. And it's a fantastic pick and a fantastic episode.
Love it. All right, let's move on to your soup round pick, Carlos. What do you got?
Okay, so this is about kind of Kira the leader, and my 5 words are Cuban Missile Crisis in Space, # there's a fire starting in my heart, and it's Shadows and Symbols.
You guys both picked that.
Yeah, season 7. I actually technically I did pick Shadows and Symbols, but I in my notes it's I kind of thinking about it as Image in the Sand and Shadows and Symbols, because I think that it's really one story across two episodes, especially that sub B plot. Yeah, I think that on the one hand, I mean, everything that Jenn said is correct, and I agree with it completely. I'd just like to add as well that I think that there's also, I think, heavy-duty foreshadowing in kind of this version of Kira here. There's many months have passed from the death of Jadzia and Sisko leaving the station, and then the beginning of season 7, and she's now a colonel. Which behind the scenes, they weren't going to do this. They weren't going to give her a promotion, but then obviously they were kind of pushed for a promotion, arguing that everybody but her had gotten a promotion. So they give her this promotion. She's now Colonel Kira, but she's Colonel Kira in charge of the station, and she's been in charge of the station for a while. And I think that there is a certain, it's just foreshadowing of what's going to happen at the end of the series in a way that hasn't really happened in any other Star Trek series. And so I think that it's a nice way of kind of showing to the audience, like, she isn't just a fighter, she isn't just a number 2, she is in her own right as good as a Star Trek captain as those that came before and those that came after. And I think it's her as this strong-willed leader that her staff and her crew are willing to follow to the end. And it's also how the series ends. So I just kind of agree with you, everything that you said, Jenn, but I think that also, just to kind of add, that there's a certain dynamic of her as a leader that we see here that you probably hadn't seen up until this point.
This is Colonel Kira of the Bajorn Militia. Any ship traveling within transporter range of Derno will be considered hostile and fired upon.
They're not responding.
Kira to all Bajorn ships. Prepare to engage.
Sir, Admiral Ross is asking to speak to you.
Put him through.
Colonel, I'm appealing to you one last time to end this blockade.
Well, I can't do that, Admiral.
Be aware that I'm authorized to use whatever force is necessary to see that our medical supplies reach their destination. However, I'm also authorized to seek a negotiated settlement.
My government has made its position quite clear. There are to be no negotiations as long as there are Romulan weapons on Derna.
I love that, and I love your 5 words and a hashtag. I knew exactly where you were going with that. That's fantastic. Jenn, any final thoughts on Shadows and Symbols?
Yeah, no, I agree. I love the way you look at that with the foreshadowing, and I didn't think of it that way, but it's so true. And she's so ready to just command, and it's just a great episode. I'm glad it got represented, since it only made your secondary systems.
Yeah, Jim. It only made your secondary systems.
Wrong answers.
But also, by the way, if I could just add, if Avery Brooks for whatever reason hadn't come back to the series, right? Not that obviously that was going to happen, but if Captain Sisko would have gone on a mission, or the series would have been fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Season 8.
No question. I mean, but that was always the case. Because Kira was there from day one.
No, totally. But had season 8, had there been a season 8, and let's say that Avery, the character, was going to come back, but not for the first half, because he was doing whatever the prophets do. We would have had a captain, and that captain was going to be, Colonel Kira, and all would have been fine.
That's a fantastic way to look at it. All right, let's close out round 3 with my number 3 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Kira keeps ultimate secret from Odo. Hashtag whatever it takes. Necessary evil. Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 8, number 33 at TrekRanks. First of all, this is just an unbelievably great episode of Trek to begin with. It's Terok Nor under Cardassian rule. It's the whole film noir style, which is just genius for the storytelling flashbacks. And I love that it adds to Trek's kind of ability to kind of tell stories in different genres and ways. So having said all that, though, I'm picking the episode because we're seeing the down and dirty Kira. She's in the middle of the show. She's desperate Kira. And you get to see exactly what it's the first time you get to see her as a terrorist, / freedom fighter, whatever viewpoint you're taking in these flashbacks. And she is desperate to do whatever it takes to drive oppression from her home. And it's so deep. And the final reveal of this murder mystery episode, and I just remember a gut punch when I realized, when you realize Odo's figured it out, and you're like, what's he? Oh no! Kira murdered this guy. She murdered this guy and never told him about it for 5 years. And that final scene where he's like, you could have told me. And she's saying, what you think of me matters. And will you ever be able to trust me again? And then they just pan out with a silent head bow. It's spectacular. It tells you everything you need to know about Kira, that she will do whatever it takes. Fantastic episode. Jen, what's your take on Necessary Evil?
Yeah, this is a wonderful episode in its own right. I think of it more of it as an Odo episode, but that last scene, like you said, it's such a gut punch the first time because she kind of lied to you too. You know what I mean? Not just Odo.
Yeah.
When I watched this, it always kind of surprises me that it was this only happened 5 years ago.
Right.
You know, like that's really not that long ago.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, when the series starts, I mean, the occupation ended less than a year ago. So this is all like relatively fresh stuff. And so she's, obviously got, moved past that, but, it's like, I don't have anything else to say. It's so good.
It's like you said, it's only 5 years and it shows them meet for the first time. It's amazing. Yeah. Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that I love season 2 of Deep Space Nine. Love it. I think it's the best sophomore season to date. We'll see about Discovery season 2. But I love it. I think that there are so many amazing episodes. But I think it's really the last half of season 2 where it really gets cooking. Except this is very early on in season 2, and I think that this is this is in my top 20 episodes of Deep Space Nine for sure. It looks amazing. It's shot amazing. That last shot that you're referring to, where they both are kind of, it's that shot, and they're both looking at each other, and they both bow their heads, and then it just kind of fades out. Oh, it's
so good.
As good as any shot, and powerful as any shot on Star Trek. It's just an amazing episode.
Incredible. All right, let's move to round 2. And Jen, what's your number 2 pick?
My number 2 pick. You can't bury it, Kara. # forgive yourself. Season 1, episode 12, Battle Lines.
Right.
So this is the one where Kaiopaka dies in the Gamma Quadrant, gets, resurrected by the magical nanites. But she has to stay on the planet. And this shows this is the more vulnerable side of Kira. The moment I want to highlight in this is the conversation between Kira and the Kai, where Kira finds herself, relating to these prisoners locked in this eternal combat. And she finally breaks down and gets emotional and has to face everything that she's done during the occupation. And this feels like her first step towards healing. And it's such a beautiful scene, acted so well by Kira and the Kai, and are both amazing here. And it's so vulnerable and raw, and it's such a lovely scene. And it's one of my favorite scenes in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, the way you described it was all the things I was going to say, that it's so emotional, so raw. And it's one of the best performances. I mean, Kira, when she's wailing over her body, when she's dying, and when she's coming to, like you said, this acceptance for all her anger, it's so well done. I'm a huge Kaiopaka fan.
Yeah,
me too. I love her.
Not a big religious guy at all, but I really like that character, and I thought it was a really interesting way for them to handle that and show growth for Kira. Carlos?
You're not a religious guy? You never mentioned that.
Oh, not at all.
Also, were you on Enterprise?
Hocus Pocus. Carlos, what's your take on Battle Lines?
What's amazing about that episode is that Kaiopaka, if you look at the minutes that she's on screen, I bet you it's not more than 20 minutes in the entire series. Right. She's probably in 3 or 4 episodes?
3 or 4, and she's got a couple of orb.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of them aren't even her. It's just a prophet taking her form.
Let's talk. I mean, that is a character that looms large over Deep Space Nine, looms large over Kira and her direction, and she's barely in that show. And it's amazing, like that character and how what's important about that character is obviously that how she impacts Kira, right? But I'm always surprised when anyone mentions Kaiopaka, because we all love Kaiopaka. But Kaiopaka looms large, and she's probably in the series all of like 17 minutes.
Well, part of that is you want more, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Camille Saviola, the actress, is so good.
Yeah.
Oh, she's so good.
Yeah.
And to me, Kai Opaka is the anti-Kai Wynn.
Yeah.
In every way, and I feel like she represented hope.
Yeah.
To the Bajorans, I think Kara says that, like she gave us, just her very existence, kept us hopeful during this horrible occupation.
Yeah.
And just her loss, like you said, when she's wailing over Kai Opaka's body, like you could feel like how deep that sorrow went. The symbol of Bajor.
That episode aired when I was 10, and I remember like watching it live, and that impacted me so much, because it's also like one of the first times that you really see a Trek character like break down like that. Like in TNG, there were moments where death, but like there was a spiritual connection, a real like raw emotion and connection between the two, and it's a wonderful scene and episode.
I was not 10 when that episode aired. But let's move on from that. Okay.
No wrong answers.
All right.
No wrong answers.
Carlos, what's your round 2 pick for top Kira Nerys episode?
Okay, so this is Kira as the Liberator. My 5 words are looks awesome in Starfleet digs, and my hashtag is will you join me in my crusade? Season 7, episode 21. I'm only following Jenn, I think, from now on, and it's When It Rains.
Yay!
So yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, but just to add a couple of little things, I think this episode is such a highlight of the series as a whole for the character, but also that particular like last 10 hours of DS9. It's phenomenal. Again, I think it's that episode where you really see her becoming and growing into the character that she will be later on. And I think that, if had the series continued, this is the kind of Kira that we would have gotten, this very kind of like, not necessarily elder statesman, that's the wrong way of putting it, but this like person with gravitas that is a leader that can kind of change the course of history. And she does. And like, as Jenn pointed out, without Damar's resistance, they would never have won, and the only reason that the Damar's resistance even stood a chance was because Kira came in there and kind of took charge. It's a fantastic episode. Funny, I didn't know this until today. It was directed by Michael Dorn.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
This is an amazing episode. Funny enough that it was directed by Michael Dorn, and I just love the fact that she kind of rises to this challenge, despite the fact that it's the Cardassians, despite the fact that it's Damar, despite the fact that she has to go with Garrick.
Like, that was the only story that you're telling on Deep Space Nine. You'd be like, wow, what a brilliant story.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's incredible how much they crammed into it.
Yeah, and she puts her feelings aside, which Kira from season 1, season 2, season 3 couldn't have done that.
Yeah, that's great. Shows her growth.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go to my round 2 pick. And speaking of directors, I noticed an odd connection to my previous episode. They're written and directed by the same people, which I had no idea.
Yeah.
So Peter Allen Fields and directed by James L. Conway on Necessary Evil, and on my number 2 pick, which is 5 words and a hashtag, Maritza wants justice for Galatep, hashtag, but receives justice from Kira instead. It is, of course, Duet, one of the all-time great episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. From season 1, it's my number 10 at TrekRanks. First season classic that I think everyone knows this story. And Kira, is driven by so many different emotions in this episode, because the first is compassion. When she hears about a victim of Kalanora syndrome and she wants to go pay her respects. Then hatred and revenge right away when she realizes there's a Cardassian war criminal on the station. Then the determination that I've talked about to figure out the truth because she knows something's up here. And then forgiveness at the end when she does find out the truth and she's able to kind of cope with the reality of his situation, and then sorrow and anger when he's killed right in front of her after she's been able to forgive him. So this episode is, everyone knows it's powerful storytelling narrative and one of Star Trek's all-time best hours. And I don't know if either one of you have it at your number one, but I love this episode. Carlos, what's your take on Duet?
I mean, spoiler alert, I don't have it as number one.
All right.
But I fought myself not to put it in my top 5 because I just, it is in my top 5, but I didn't include it because I knew someone else would.
Yeah. Always a gamble on TrekRanks.
Always a gamble, and I guarantee
because we did the top 5 data episodes and did not have Measure of a Man.
Yeah. Exactly. It's true. Kira is my all-time favorite Star Trek character. I have a wonderful, beautiful French bulldog named Kira after the Major.
How do we not talk about that?
I know, it's true. Oh, by the way,
that's awesome.
Every time I've tagged Nana Visitor in a couple of pictures of Kira, like my dog, and she always comments and likes it, which I just think it's fantastic. But this is the moment where, I mean, I remember, again, being like a kid obsessed with Star Trek and watching this episode, and it was just like I had never seen a Star Trek episode really like that. There are episodes, obviously, that are that deal with comparable themes, but the acting is so raw in this episode. It's just so raw, and it's so, it's like watching a live wire, watching the Navigator in this. She's just so electrifying and amazing, and that from that moment on, I was always kind of like I was raised by very strong women, so I was always kind of like I was my grandmother and my mother are very, very strong-willed. And so, like, I was always kind of drawn to the character, probably because of that, even as a kid. But I think that this was like just made it for me. And from that moment on, Major Kira has always been my favorite character.
It was a breakthrough. When we really knew how special that.
No, totally. No, and also that series and because it's just this. Yeah.
Jen, how about you? What's your take on Duet?
Okay, well, I'm also relieved that you picked this one because it's not my number one either.
One of us.
you know. But yeah, this is one of those rare episodes that actually deserves all the accolades that it gets. One of the themes that you see throughout Deep Space Nine is always this idea of who is a collaborator, defining the collaborator, and who is worthy of forgiveness and who's not. Thread throughout the entire series, but nowhere, not like you said, the acting, the raw emotional acting just puts this one to the top of the list. And another thing I think about Kira is I don't think she was ever like racist against Cardassians. I mean, you've seen her distrustful of Cardassians, but there was never this like. You never saw her say the word spoonhead or something. You know what I mean?
It wasn't O'Brien.
Yeah, it was. Right. O'Brien covered that. But that was never part of her character. So this was more subtle than that. This wasn't her getting over racism as much as it was dealing with forgiveness in general and who is worthy of that forgiveness. And it's just so lovely.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to round one. Jen, what's your top Kira Nerys episode?
Okay. My top Kira moment within an episode is 5 words and hashtag. I have to do something. #resist. Season 6, episode 2, Rocks and Shoals. So Kira is actually barely even the B story in this episode. This is more about the planet. Yeah. But meanwhile, while that's happening, Kira is left, Kira and Odo and Quark are left behind during the Dominion takeover. Bajor has a non-aggression pact with the Dominion, and Sisko wants them to stay and he's trying to keep Bajor out of the war. And she understands that, but it gets to the point where she just starts feeling uncomfortable about what she's doing. And it comes to the head when the Vedic that wants to have a protest ends up hanging herself in the promenade. And that would, that scene, she says, evil must be opposed before she does it. And in response to that is my favorite Kira speech. So this is Kira after that happens, and she's actually standing in the spot where the Vedic hung herself when she gives the speech about how, she can't believe what she's become, that she's comfortable in the station, eating full meals and sleeping in a comfortable bed while other people are fighting for her freedom. She even says, I am a collaborator, Odo. And for her, and when she feels that way, she realizes that she has to do something. And this is when she decides to start sabotaging from within the Dominion takeover Deep Space Nine. And it's just, this speech is just so powerful. I feel like it's one of the most apt for what's going on right now in 2018. To me, it feels like it's almost like a rallying cry, because I know there are days like that when I feel like I have to do something. Like, what can I do?
I keep going over it and over it in my mind, and I can't believe that I stood there, ready to use force to stop a protest against the Dominion. Me. When I was in the Resistance, I despised people like me. I'm a collaborator, Odo.
That's not true. You're doing exactly what Captain Sisko wanted you and the rest of Bajor to do: remain neutral and stay out of the fighting.
We used to have a saying in the Resistance, if you're not fighting them, you're helping them. Half the Alpha Quadrant is out there right now fighting for my freedom, but not me. What am I doing? Eating a full meal every day, sleeping in a soft bed, even write reports for the murderers who run this station.
It just really speaks to me. I just adore it.
It's a great deep cut pick. I would not have thought of picking this one for that. And those great scenes where she's riding in the turbo lift and slowly realizing that she's coming
and she's
acclimated to this and used to it.
Yeah.
I love that. Carlos, any thoughts on it?
No, I think that arc's really important to her, and obviously, I think my number 4 pick was the same. Kind of towards the end of that same arc, and I think it's. Right. I think the beginning. I think you're right to highlight that beginning, because that's the spark, right? She realizes, and for her to call herself a collaborator, that's right. That's some deep kind of. Maybe hatred is too strong a word, but that's probably one of the worst things that Kira can label anyone, she's and to label and to realize that she is collaborating with the enemy. I mean, I think as well, she's kind of thinking, she's following orders from Captain Sisko. She's laying low and waiting for the right time. But I love the fact that she manages to kind of, up to a point, she manages to do both. She manages to follow orders, but at the same time, after that moment that you've talked about, Jen, she then becomes that, like, okay, well, how can I follow orders, but at the same time stay true to myself and fight? Yep. Awesome.
It's fantastic. Well, love that pick. Great deep cut.
Great pick.
All right, Carlos, what's your number 1 pick for Kira?
All right. So this is all about, I think, her defining characteristic, and so it's Kira, the resistance fighter. My 5 words are, what you think of me, and hashtag I am a survivor, I'm going to make it. And it is season 2, episode 8, Necessary Evil. I don't know. I feel kind of bad. I feel like now my last 3 have been repeats, but I think Necessary Evil is, necessary watching for any Star Trek fan. I think it is. It's one of the first times that Trek does noir really well. It's incredible. Just that you could watch that episode on mute, and be like, it's just gorgeous. The grays and the blue hues and the Cardassian occupation of the way they shoot that is phenomenal. And it's the same sets. They didn't build any new sets. It's a bottle show. It's totally a bottle show, and it's spectacular. I mean, I think we've talked about it. I think that last scene, schism between the two of them, that first time you get to see, you really see a difference between the not a difference, but the first time that a rift is caused between Odo and Kira is just, it's an amazing sequence. It's an amazing scene. That last shot, as we said, is, I think, one of the most beautiful shots in all of Star Trek. It says, nothing is said yet. It speaks volumes, right? And that's something that will be carried. It obviously doesn't stop their relationship, but it's something that they carry with them forever.
I didn't have a choice.
I misjudged you, Major. You were a better liar than I gave you credit for.
You were working for the Cardassians.
I haven't been for more than a year. You've had all that time to tell me the truth.
I tried to tell you the truth 100 times. What you think of me matters a lot.
I was afraid.
That it might affect our friendship. Maybe it doesn't have to.
Will you ever be able to trust me in the same way again?
I love this Kira because this is a Kira that's like all instinct. She's angry. And also, like, is she like a teenager? Is she 19 or 20? Like, at this point, she has to be. Oh. That's the other thing, is that she's probably like 18 to 21 in this episode, right? So, like, you're talking about, you're talking about somebody who is that young doing that kind of stuff to try to save her people and she knows what she's doing is wrong, but she's gonna do it anyway because it's what's required of her and what they need to do. They need to do whatever it takes to kind of to beat the Cardassians. And I just think that this is one of all those flashbacks of like a young Kira. I think that this is, to me, the most raw. This is truly like the embodiment of that resistance fighter, because she's not only fighting, she is as good as Garak at lying. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why she doesn't like Garak, because I think Garak really reminds her of the kind of person she had to be. And not only that she had to be, but she's really good at it, right? In those sequences, she's lying to Odo, and she knows it, and she is playing Odo until Odo figures it out, right? And she wasn't going to say anything until Odo figures it out. So she was okay with keeping that secret. And so I think that there's that dynamic that goes between her and Garak later on. Obviously, Garak is Garak, and my second favorite character in all Star Trek. But I think that there are elements of Garak that remind Kira of the worst of her, and that's the reason why she really. It's not because she's racist. It's not because he's just a Cardassian. It's because she did things that Garak also had to do and did.
Well, you said, whatever it takes. That was my hashtag for that. Yeah. And I love the all instinct. She is literally going all instinct in this. She's desperate. And she's desperate. She's going to do what it takes. So. Yeah. Jen, any final thoughts on Necessary Evil?
No, you're right. It's an interesting point about how young she is, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they talk about that, how even Shakar, even though she's young, Shakar still said she could fight and doing these things. But I never thought of that connection between Kira and Garak, and I really find that very interesting. That's a really cool way to look at it, at their relationship.
All right, well, let's go on to my number one pick, and I'm fired up because you guys, this is a connection to your guys' picks of When It Rains, and this is an episode that I did not expect to be my number one, but as I was recently going through Deep Space Nine, it jumped out at me, and I have 5 words in a hashtag. Kira leads Cardassian resistance fight. Hashtag, you heard that right. Except it's Tacking Into the Wind, the episode after When It Rains in season 7.
Love it.
And I picked this one mainly because it's a little bit more of the action terrorist as opposed to the setup of what she's going to be doing and how she's guiding these guys. Yeah. So, and again, freedom fighter, terrorist, whichever side you're on, I guess, dictates how you call her. But this episode has it all. She's pushing past her hatred of the Cardassians that she's literally saving. Mm. That fight against Rusat, who eventually dies. Yeah. She's like, when he's confronting her in the caves. And then you have this amazing moment where Damar is talking about what kind of people commit these kinds of atrocities. And she's got that, what kind of people? Right. And then she realizes how stupid it was that she said that. To confront him on that, because he obviously is that kind of person that would commit those atrocities. And it all ends with that really incredibly underrated moment when I love the ending of this. She's consoling Odo, and he's in bad shape, and he's been hiding this from her, but she obviously knew, and he just says, please stay with me. And she holds him as close as she can. And that is the moment where, if you have any doubts about this relationship, that moment sells it so strong that she just wants to stay with him and hold him.
Yeah. Probably angry. I hid my true condition.
along. But it's not over. Julian's probably working on a cure right now.
Nice, don't. Just stay here with me.
This episode has everything for me with Kira, and I freaking love it. It's number 21 for me at TrekRanks. Carlos, tacking into the wind. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons that you said. What episode is it? It's not tacking to the wind. Is it the next one where they steal the ship?
No, that's the one where they steal the ship.
This is the one where
they steal the ship. All that's going on with this. They steal the ship.
They steal the ship because I love that sequence when they steal the ship. Yeah. I couldn't remember what episode that was in. But I feel like all those 10 hours kind of run in beautifully run into each other. But that sequence is awesome when they steal the ship and then something is wrong. They need more time, and then Kira puts on, pretends to be the Vorta, and just fantastic. But it is, I think, and Garrick. There's that sequence where Garrick says, "How long did you know?" He's like, "I love him, Garrick. I've known,
moment.
Yeah,
she realizes I've known the whole time.
Yeah.
I've been setting it up so that you can spend time alone.
Yeah, I think that there's a wonderful Garrick-Kira dynamic. And when Damar says, go.
Well, no, when she confronts Damar and says how stupid I am, he says, no, you're not stupid.
He needed to hear it.
He needed to hear that.
Yeah,
it's an amazing
moment. It is an amazing moment.
What kind of state tolerates the murder of innocent women and children? What kind of people give those orders?
Yeah, Damar, what kind of people give those orders? Oh, that was stupid.
Not at all. Damar has a certain romanticism about the past. He could use a dose of cold water.
I could have picked a better time.
If he's the man to lead a new Cardassia, if he's the man we all hope him to be. And the pain of this news made him more receptive to what you said, not less.
And also, I mean, Jenn, you brought this up. She looks awesome in a Starfleet uniform. I don't know, it's just a regular uniform, but she rocks it completely. I just think, and I don't mean that she's obviously a very attractive character, all that, but she just looks like in command 100% when she's wearing that thing, and it's just awesome. But I think that all of those episodes are fantastic, but for her character in particular, for her relationship with Odo, her dynamic with Garrick, awesome.
Jen, what's your take on tacking it?
No, everything you guys say, I agree with. It's a wonderful. I think that's a turning point for Damar. When she says that after he just finds out about his family, I think something snaps in him, and I think that leads to him turning his weapon on his what's the guy's name, Rousseau. And instead of Kira, I think that's kind of makes that moment make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I love of course I love the Odo Kara stuff. I like when she's like, if this is the last dignity I can give him is to pretend that I don't know he's injured, that's what I'm going to do. And it just shows how much she completely understands Odo, know?
Yeah.
That's a great pick. That's a great episode.
All right, let's run through some quick secondary systems picks. Carlos, anything on your list?
So I did have a really a curveball one, and probably pun intended here. I was thinking of an episode where really we saw a happy Kira. Obviously, again, I don't necessarily think those are her it's defining characteristic, but there are these wonderful episodes, particularly later on in the series, and I love the wonderful kind of Kira moments in Take Me Out to the Holosuite. I love that episode. It's one of my all-time favorite episodes of Trek.
Mine too.
But I think that she really gets into it. She gets into the competition element of it. She really she just goes for it in a way that earlier Kira would never have done it. That episode where Dax and her are talking in the Holosuite. She goes, I didn't have much I didn't get an opportunity really to pretend as a child. I don't have much use of an imagination. And here she is, like, into it with the baseball cap and trying to learn baseball. And it's just like a wonderful side of Kira. So that was going to be one of my curveballs, but didn't obviously go in.
I love that. Jenn, how about you?
Well, I think it's funny you mentioned that because I was trying to think of fun Kira moments too. Yeah. And I actually came up with Bada Bing, Bada Bang for that. Because she gets so into the character of of distracting Frankie Eyes, you know, and she just looks like she's really enjoying like being the spy, like playing the spy, you know. And it's funny that we picked those holodeck episodes because in contrast to episodes earlier when Dax has to kind of like force her into the holosuite program with the spa and you know they try to play Lancelot and Guinevere and that doesn't go right either. And it's funny that popped into both of our heads.
Right. No, I was going to say that's right, but like, and it's those two episodes are right after each other in season 7 because season 6 and before that Kira would never have done any of that.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on your list?
Oh yeah. Well, I kind of want there. Well, there's some really good ones that we didn't get to talk about. We didn't talk about Covenant, which was Paul Ray's cult, where she basically convinces a cult that their leader is lying to them. Like, how hard is that, you know, to do when these people are brainwashed? And she managed to do that. Also, The Collaborator. Yeah. Which is. I love that one. That one was really a hard cut for me. I mean, I love how she gets under Kai Wynn's skin so bad that Kai Wynn basically says, don't, if you ever talk to me with that kind of disrespect again, you know, don't.
Kai Wynn kind of gets the upper hand at the end. It turns out it was Opaka and Barai.
It was Opaka, and But even then, like, and like Kira always has everybody's number. Like she figured it out because she knew that he wouldn't cover it up, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
I also, one more. I want to go to, but I did want to mention The Begotten because we haven't talked about Kiriyoshi yet. Yeah. And I think that was a major event in her life.
Yeah.
And I you know, that she was another thing that she was just kind of thrust into another thing she had to do, you know what I mean, to protect her people. And just at the scene at the end with her and Odo again, both going through, you know, he just lost the baby changeling and she just, you know, had to give Kiriyoshi to his parents and just both, you know, talking about what the feelings of loss that they're experiencing. And it's such a lovely, I think that might be my favorite Kira and Odo moment. So I wanted to mention that one too.
It's a great pick.
There's that wonderful Dax and her moment kind of a couple of episodes later when she's describing the joy of Kiriyoshi going to visit Kiriyoshi. And Dax just goes, it's probably gas. And it's just so good.
And then O'Brien walks in and he agrees with Carrie. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's so cute. He recognized you."
It's so good.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great one. I had on mine. I had Second Skin because it's kind of the anti-Kira episode. Where it's obviously a fun Kira episode, but it's the only episode where you really see her doubting herself, questioning, and really being confused, and it's kind of hard to watch, but it's a great episode.
But also, I mean, you say that, but also she's the one that figured it out. As soon as she realized that he was a dissident, she's like, "Wait a minute, you're a dissident."
Good point.
Yeah.
And she figures out the scam, and I think she's so good. She
that 20 minutes before that is so hard.
It is.
All right, then my only other one that I had, I talked about Indiscretion a little bit, and Shadows and Symbols was on mine, but I love the homecoming, and I love it for the moment at the very beginning when she says, "This mission can only end in one of two ways. Either we bring Lee Nallas back alive, or we don't come back at all." Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah,
it's so Kira.
Yeah, it's so Kira. It's
Kira.
One of her defining moments.
Funny that you said. I was thinking, when I was doing quote unquote research for this, again on the Uber over here, I read that Ron Moore named Starbuck Kara after Kira.
I didn't know.
And I didn't know that either. And I was like, really? And so I looked it up and like, yep. And in several interviews, he talks about how he thought the character of Kira was such an amazing character for him, and that he wanted to infuse Starbuck in Battlestar. He wanted her to be Kira-esque, and so that he named her Kara because of Kira.
That's awesome. Did not know that.
I didn't know that.
Fun fact.
All right, well, let's wind it up. So much awesomeness, Kira awesomeness here on TrekRanks tonight. Definitely need a regeneration cycle now to recap our picks with a quick statistical analysis.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
All right, let's run through our recap for picks. Jen, run through your top 5.
Okay, number 5 was Emissary. Number 4, Shadows and Symbols. Number 3, When It Rains. Number 2, Battle Lines. And number 1, Rocks and Shoals.
Fantastic list. So you had 2 from season 1, 2 from season 7, and 1 from season 6. Very interesting. Carlos, how about you?
My number 5 pick was His Way from season 6. Number 4 was Favor the Bold. Number 3, kind of Image in the Sand and Shadows and Symbols, but really Shadows and Symbols. 2, When It Rains. And last but not least, Necessary Evil.
Fantastic. You had 2 from season 6, 2 from season 7, and 1 from season 2. And I had Return to Grace, Shakar, Necessary Evil, Duet, and Tacking into the Wind. So I had 1 each from seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. So I kind of spread it around. Overall, the breakdown, nothing from season 5. We had 5 picks from season 7 and 3 from season 6 and 3 from season 1, and kind of spread it around after that. So there was 2 duplicates. So no, 3 duplicates. 3 duplicates. Yeah. Amazing. Oh my God, these episodes are so great. Awesome conversation. But once again, we've entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
This week, we're jumping back to episode 31 and our top 5 hottest characters part 2, which is when we broke down our hottest women characters as part of our Pride Month celebration. So as you might expect, we got a ton of great submissions, too many to count, literally. So we got a lot of love for the usual suspects, including 7 of 9 and Uhura and T'Pol. And also a lot of votes for Hoshi Sato from Enterprise and Jayla from Star Trek Beyond. And Kalar got a ton of votes, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
I love Kalar.
I love Kalar, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
So I was just going to highlight some of my favorite deep cut picks. And one of my favorites was the choice of, it was Joanne Owosakun, the bridge officer from Star Trek Discovery, who I think we're going to see a lot more in season 2.
Absolutely. The whole bridge of the Discovery, I would watch just a show, a Lower Decks version of that.
Totally.
I think we're going to see
a whole season of them. And they're all hot. Like, if we're talking about hot.
Yeah, they're all incredibly attractive. Yeah. They're all very attractive.
So that pick came in from Angst Happy Dance on Twitter, who is at LHA_again. But Angst Happy Dance. All right, we also got a list of 3 great deep cut TOS picks from Spock's Brain, who is at Trim_often on Twitter. That's Trim Often on Twitter. They picked the gorgeous Kalinda from By Any Other Name, Yeoman Barrows from Shore Leave, who's amazing, and Isis in human form, not Black Cat form, from Assignment Earth. I love those picks. Right. We got another great deep cut pick from Lower Pylon Rick, who is at Trek Fan Rick, one of our former guests here on Trek.
Romulan Spy.
That's right, because you were on the show together, and you guys had. Oh, that was that Cisco?
That was our Cisco episode.
Yeah,
that dude literally stole every single one of my picks.
Points. That was amazing. So he submitted a great 5 words and a hashtag summary for Grilka as one of his hottest characters. I love it. Hashtag, it was romantic reenacting Battle of Kamchi, hashtag Quark's ex-wife, which if you read really fast is also Quark sex wife. But okay. And Rick Palmer at Mr. Imhotop, IMHOTOP. He had the ridiculously great pick of Elizabeth Cutler from season 1 of Enterprise on his list. That was the only person to pick Cutler. Love her. And finally, we had 1 vote for the Enterprise herself, And that came in from Robert at Phil's Stalker. So I wanted to highlight that because that's a commendation for original thinking.
But
he picked the Enterprise.
Well, which one?
He didn't say.
He didn't say. There's a big difference. Let's be honest.
Hey, you know what we say in TrekRanks? If your pick results in more picks, then we support it.
Fine, fair enough.
So
fair
that
enough.
works. All right, one more deep cut shout out to Joshua Zeller at Madcap of Science, who picked Captain Picard as one of his hottest female characters, Captain Beverly Picard from All Good Things. I love that pick, and I love that alternate future because she's gorgeous. All right, great.
She does. She's another one that captain's uniform just.
Totally.
So
she wears that so well.
She wears that. Sometimes the uniform kind of wears the character.
Yeah.
Times when Beverly Picard in charge.
That's right.
All right, great picks everywhere, and so many of them were more than enough to get us out of this week's temporal causality loop. So thanks everyone again for all the amazing responses to TrekRanks. Please keep your lists coming to me at TrekRanks. We can retweet them, but we also want to hear from you. So please put together your own list of top 5 Kira Nerys episodes or moments and give us a call. Tell us your list. Call us at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are dissecting our top 5 Romulan episodes. We previously did our top 5 Klingon episodes back in episode 10. So up next, in episode 34, it's our top 5 Romulan episodes. So Carlos and Jen, anything jumping out at you guys that you might immediately include in your Romulan episodes?
Is Rick going to be on that episode?
No.
Yeah.
No.
All right, fine.
I was going to say I have to admit that I'm a big fan of Face of the Enemy.
Oh, yeah. That's a great pick.
I really like that one.
That
would definitely be.
I'm going to say that's the only time, that's the only good Troy story.
Not the only one, but
not the only good one.
What's your Romulan pick?
I do love Face of the Enemy. I love Unification 1 and 2.
Yes.
Of course, yeah. Good one.
I think, and I think that the Romulans are to a degree really well used. Obviously not very much, but I think they're well used on DS9. I think we talked about, obviously, Jen, you and I, with Shadows and Symbols, but I think, the ridiculous Latin episode that I'm not even going to pretend to say. No wrong answers, right? But that's a great Romulan episode.
You don't get to pick all 5.
Fine.
All right.
Senator Kretak is a great character.
Yeah.
John I'll just say this thing.
Yes.
Carlos and Jen, you guys have manipulated the situation. The skill of a Romulan. So before we wrap it up, a huge thank you for our awesome Trek guests, Carlos, Miranda, and Jenn Tifft. Hope you guys had fun. Any final Trek thoughts?
No, just thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. Talking about an amazing character with amazing characters. So,
yeah, that's true.
Thank you.
That's exactly what happened. No, it is. I think again, this is the 3rd or 4th time I've said it, but I think Kira is not just my favorite character in Trek, but it's I think one of the greatest characters in all of science fiction. So
totally agree.
It's been a pleasure.
Great character and a great episode of TrekRanks. So I just want to thank everyone again for engaging with us here on episode 33 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
I've always found that when people try to convince others of their beliefs, it's because they're really just trying to convince themselves.
I know what I believe.
And that's what scares me. No offense.
Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's TrekGeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.
Our food supplies are running low.
We'll have to cut back on rations until we can get a hold of some food replicators.
When I spoke to Garrick, I told him to bring some.
Federation food replicators?
We're in no position to turn down help, no matter where it comes from.
Taking help from the Federation is bad enough, but having to take it from that Bajoran terrorist...
Kira Nerys has certain skills she's willing to teach us. Skills we need if we're going to defeat the Dominion.